Coming up today, the government's handling of the MERS outbreak is once again dominating discussions at a parliamentary inquiry session at the National Assembly. Buoyed by recent thawing in ties, South Korea and Japan agreed to boost defence cooperation this year to counter the nuclear and missile threat posed by North Korea. Plus, South Korea reports 4 new cases of Middle East Respiratory Syndrome, but no additional deaths from the disease. Stay tuned for these stories and more. Hello, it's noon on Wednesday, the 24th of June. You're tuned in to our midday newscast here on Arirang TV. Thank you, as always, for tuning in. I'm Mark Broome. We start with the latest on the MERS outbreak in Korea and specifically the government's response to it. Government officials have been coming under fire for their sloppy handling of the situation in the early stages, and the criticism continues at the National Assembly today. On the final day of a parliamentary inquiry session this Wednesday, opposition party lawmakers have been urging the presidential office to act as the control tower to resolve the current crisis. They are also demanding President Park Geun-hye issue a public apology for the poor initial response. Now, ruling party lawmakers have the mayor of Seoul in their crosshairs. They've slammed Park Won-soon for causing unwarranted panic during the early stages of the outbreak when he made an unprecedented emergency announcement that his critics say was factually incorrect. Lawmakers also urge the government to quickly mobilise all available manpower and equipment to help farmers cope with the severe drought that is straining agricultural production. Now to the latest numbers on the outbreak of Middle East Respiratory Syndrome in Korea. 4 more cases of MERS were confirmed today. This lifts the tally to 179. And while many believe the contagion to be on the decline, we're continuing to see a small number, a handful of new cases each day. For more details, our Han Dan is with us this afternoon. Dan.
Good afternoon, Mark. Waking up to a few more MERS cases is almost becoming a daily routine now. But what's grabbing attention today is that one of the 4 new patients contracted the virus between the 27th and the 29th of May at Samsung Medical Center. This is putting health authorities on edge because the quarantine policy is based on the commonly known incubation period of 2 to 14 days at the longest. But as some patients are exhibiting symptoms of MERS after 14 days, questions are surfacing on the authenticity of the commonly recognized incubation period. According to health officials in Saudi Arabia, the origin of the deadly virus, there has been one case where a patient was tested positive 6 weeks after he or she contracted the virus. So, Mark, that's definitely something to keep an eye on. Let's take a look at the numbers now. Korea has a total of 179 patients so far, with 27 deaths and more than 3,000 in quarantine. No deaths were reported overnight. 67 have fully recovered from the disease, including patient 14, the super spreader who exposed some 80 others at Samsung Hospital. Also, the first patient who brought the virus into Korea is on a stable path to recovery, testing negative on the preliminary diagnostic test. Mark?
And Dan, we must stress that nearly all of the confirmed MERS cases in Korea have been passed on within medical facilities. For our viewers out there who may be concerned, are there any particular hospitals they should watch out for, avoid?
Mark, Gangdong Sacred Heart Hospital in Seoul has partially shut down its operations as a 70-year-old woman who tested positive yesterday was hospitalized there for days. How did that happen? Well, she came into contact with patient 76 on the 5th of this month at a different hospital in Seoul, but stayed off the government's quarantine radar. And Samsung Medical Center says it'll maintain the current partial shutdown of operations indefinitely as concerns on whether the troubled hospital is MERS-free linger. That does it for now. We'll have more MERS updates in our future newscasts.
South Korea and Japan are to resume defence-related exchanges as they mark the 50th anniversary of the normalisation of bilateral ties. Officials at Seoul's Defence Ministry say working-level talks for policy coordination between Defence Ministry officials will be held in the autumn. This comes after both nations called this week for efforts to boost bilateral relations that have long been weighed down by issues related to history and territory. The meeting will assess the security threats posed by North Korea and ways to boost defence cooperation next year. The two sides will also discuss follow-up measures from their defence ministers' talks last month. Seoul and Tokyo will discuss Korea's import ban on Japanese fisheries products at the World Trade Organization's headquarters in Geneva on Wednesday and Thursday. Japan filed a trade complaint with the WTO last month, claiming Korea's ban is inconsistent and in violation of trade rules. Korea's Trade Ministry argued the restrictions are necessary for the people's safety. The Korean government expanded its import ban to include all seafood from waters off 8 prefectures surrounding Fukushima in September 2013, 2 years after the nuclear disaster. Now, if an agreement is not reached at the meeting, the WTO will launch a dispute settling panel. The settlement process is then expected to last over 1 year. Japan has surpassed Korea in attracting more foreign tourists for the first time in 7 years. The figures compiled by the tourism agencies of the two nations show Japan welcomed around 1.6 million more foreign tourists than Korea in the first 5 months of this year, recording an on-year growth of 45%. Japan's tourist numbers got a bump thanks to the weak Japanese yen and Tokyo's decision to expand visa exemptions to more countries. Korea attracted around 5.9 million foreign tourists during the January to May period. The difference is set to grow as the comparison did not include the negative impact of the MERS outbreak in Korea, which will be reflected in figures for the month of June. Now, with city bus drivers poised to go on strike, the Seoul Metropolitan Government is devising measures to minimise the possible impact on commuters. The Labour Union of Seoul's bus drivers says that from 4 a.m. on Thursday, thousands of bus drivers will walk off the job indefinitely. The union is demanding an almost 7.3% pay increase and an extension of the retirement age. Representatives of the union and the city bus operator will meet later today in an effort to avoid the strike. More than 90% of union members voted in favour of the plan approved on Tuesday. If the strike goes ahead, city officials will extend subway service hours and operate shuttle buses during the rush hour commutes. The long-awaited UN Human Rights Office opened in Seoul on Tuesday to document North Korea's abuses. Officials say the office will build a record so the North Korean leadership can eventually be brought to account for its crimes against humanity. Hwang Sang-yi reports.
The UN opened the doors of a field office in Seoul on Tuesday, aimed at monitoring the dire human rights situation in North Korea. UN High Commissioner for Human Rights Zaid Rad Al Hussein said the new office promises to take the United Nations human rights system to the next level.
The Seoul office will monitor and document human rights issues in the DPRK, building on the landmark work of the Commission of Inquiry and Special Rapporteur. We firmly believe this will help lay the basis for future accountability.
The setup of the office was just one of the recommendations of a groundbreaking UN report published in February of last year. The report brought widespread attention to the rampant human rights violations in the north, including torture, starvation, and forced abortions. The field office in Seoul is expected to serve as a bridge between the international community and civic groups to strengthen collective efforts against the abuses. South Korean Foreign Minister Yoon Byung-se expressed hopes that it will contribute to bringing ultimate freedom to people in the north.
As we open the North Korea Human Rights Office, let us work together so that one day the people of North Korea will come to enjoy the same equality, dignity, and freedom they so rightly deserve.
The new office, however, is expected to deal a heavy blow to inter-Korean relations. North Korea has slammed its opening, calling it an unpardonable provocation and warned of starting a war against it. Hwang Sang-yi, Arirang News.
Thursday marks 65 years since North Korean troops, supported by China and the Soviet Union, invaded South Korea and started the Korean War. To this day, the Koreas are still technically at war, as evidenced by the mass of troops lining each side. The division of the Koreas has also prevented thousands of families from seeing each other. Connie Kim reports.
About 1.5 kilometers from where I'm standing is North Korean territory. It seems close, but it's been like another world for more than 60 years, as Korea is still the world's only divided country.
The Korean peninsula remains visibly split by heavily secured barbed wire fences that stretch nearly 250 kilometers across a general outpost, the buffer zone between the south and the north. It stands as a disheartening symbol of the country's separation ever since the armistice agreement was signed in 1953. Nam Tae-wan, like his father, has been guarding Korea's demilitarized zone.
My grandfather participated in the Korean War and my father served at the GOP, so I feel a strong sense of responsibility to guard the borderline.
The reality that families torn apart by the war remain separated even though they live on the same land is still hard to accept to this day. Kyung Sun-bong, who for the past 41 years has been living in the Unification Village, located just behind the DMZ, says this is the closest she can get to her hometown in North Korea.
I moved here because I wanted to be close to the north, but time has passed by so quickly, I don't know if the two Koreas will reunify before I die.
Fleeing with her uncle to the south the year after the war broke out, she never imagined she would ever see her parents, her brothers, and sisters again.
If reunification comes, I want to go visit my hometown first. I don't know if I'll find my younger brothers there, but I want to walk the streets of my village. I can still vividly remember the roads of my town.
More than 129,000 South Koreans are registered as having separated families in the north. Only about half are still alive today, desperately waiting to see their loved ones one last time. Connie Kim, Arirang News, Paju.
Now, the best culinary delights Korea has to offer are on the menu at this year's World Expo in Milan. More than 140 countries at the Expo celebrate a national day to promote their food culture and raise awareness about nutritional problems as well. Korea celebrated its National Day on Tuesday local time. Na Hyung-kyung reports.
The flags of Korea and Italy are raised, declaring the National Day of Korea at the 2015 Milan World Expo. This year, under the theme of Feeding the Planet, Energy for Life, the focus is on sharing innovative ideas, and Korea has been doing its share by suggesting Korean food, or 한식, as an exemplary solution for a sustainable future.
한식 brings with it not only the Latin principle of a healthy mind in a healthy body, but also the ability to evolve over time to adapt to different needs and criteria of sustainability.
The Korea Pavilion at the Expo has built up a reputation as being a spectator favorite. It has attracted an average of 13,000 visitors a day since its opening in May, surpassing the 500,000 mark earlier this month. And with improvements in the pavilion highlighting the country's unique reform movements to overcome poverty, Korean officials hope to help the global community sustain food security and bring people together.
I also hope that the Milan Expo and Korea Day will help strengthen not only Korea and Italy's 130 years of bilateral ties, but also the friendship that visitors from all over the world share.
Along with the OECD, Korea will also hold a one-day conference here at the Expo on Wednesday local time to discuss the importance of food as a crucial link to branding and boosting economic growth through tourism. Na Hyun-kyung, Arirang News, Milan.
Well, that's all we have for now. I'm Mark Broome. Have a wonderful day, and thanks as always for tuning in. And we do hope to see you at the same time tomorrow. Until then, goodbye.